I've played video games my whole life, but nothing has ever captivated me quite like World of Warcraft. And honestly, that should be a little ridiculous. This game has been around for over 20 years, and yet I'm still excited to log in every single day. Why does WoW still feel so alive when so many other multiplayer games come and go? Why has this online world given me some of the most meaningful experiences I have ever had gaming? For me, World of Warcraft is more than just a game. It has become a craft to master, a world to inhabit, a community to belong to, and a place to breathe when real life gets heavy. These are the 4 reasons why I think World of Warcraft is the greatest online space ever created. The first reason is mastery, that deeply human urge to keep getting better at something that never fully runs out of depth. Why is it that something as simple as soccer, an activity that even a kid can understand, can captivate hundreds of millions of people across the globe? Because at its core, it's really simple. Put the ball in their net, stop them putting it in yours, that's it. And yet people will dedicate thousands of hours, sometimes their entire lives, to this sport. And I think one of the main reasons for this is the pursuit of mastery. Because even though the rules are simple, it becomes a platform to strive for perfection. And no matter how good you become, the idea of perfect always stays just out of reach. And that's a huge part of why WoW has pulled me in for so long. On paper, WoW 2 is very simple. Get the enemy's health to 0 and don't let yours hit 0. But the way that you do that becomes absurdly complex. And the closer you get to good at the game, the more it starts to reveal just how far away from great you actually are. I've spent the last few years playing WoW at a pretty high level, and I can say without exaggeration, refining your gameplay skills to hit goals that only a fraction of the players have ever seen is really rewarding. Running the same dungeon over and over until everything lines up cleanly, until half of what you're doing is just instinct, is so satisfying. But the best part is you get to choose what mastery means for you. Maybe your goal is to be the best player in your small guild. That's like being the best at your local sporting club. Maybe it's to be the best player on your server. Maybe the best player on your region. Maybe you want to be the best player in the world. Whatever it is, WoW gives you one of the most rewarding sandboxes on Earth to challenge yourself, set goals, and refine a craft until you can look back at the end of it and say, look how far I've come. Sharpening your skills at a hobby is something we're all familiar with. It's insanely satisfying. But WoW has something that amplifies that feeling in a way that I don't think many other games can. The world itself. Because the skills that you hone in World of Warcraft don't exist in a vacuum. In a lot of games, even when you achieve something impressive, it can feel isolated, like the accomplishment lives inside the game. Take, for example, someone who's really cracked at like Tetris. The skill ceiling is ridiculous, but the whole purpose of the game is to play Tetris. It's amazing, but it's self-contained. And to be clear here, I'm not saying that being good at WoW is better than being good at anything else. What I am saying is that accomplishments in WoW hit different because of the context that they occur in. Because while you're chasing difficult goals, all around you is this living, breathing world full of other players. Thousands of little stories all happening at once. You're flying out to a dungeon that you've been slamming your head against for days, and you're crossing over these massive fantasy landscapes with epic music swelling in the background. You see people mining and fishing and dueling and doing quests and just existing in this world with you. When you land at the dungeon entrance, there are other groups gathered there too, other adventurers about to have their own adventures. It makes your goals feel like they're part of something bigger than just, I did this good. And then there's the lore of the world, the actual fantasy in it. I've always been a Lord of the Rings fan. I love worlds that feel ancient and layered and lived in like they've existed before you arrived and they'll keep existing after you leave. And for me, Azeroth scratches that itch. You're not just running content, you're moving through a world that feels like it has history embedded inside it. And as the backdrop to everything you do, the story is marching on with some of the coolest characters and concepts in fantasy gaming. We've got the Lich King, this oppressive, ominous presence with like the tragedy of a fallen prince in the background. Deathwing, a protector who was twisted by the old gods and is now just out to destroy everything. And now Xalatath, this like calm, almost psychotically unnerving villain that just feels like kind of off, but like in a really cool way. It's cool. It's so cool. Because you're not just achieving things, you're doing it inside a world that feels alive, inside this epic fantasy landscape that keeps reminding you that it's not just a map, it's a place. But alongside this, as much as the world is cool and it matters in the context of the game, the part that surprised me and pulled me in the most wasn't even the lore or the mastery of the gameplay, it was the people. All those people I mentioned earlier, the ones flying past you while you're doing your thing, the groups that are forming at the entrance of dungeons, the names of people that you start recognizing over time. These aren't just passive bystanders to your own adventure. They're not just like random people that you play alongside. They're part of what is genuinely one of the best communities I've ever been a part of. And this is the bit that really caught me off guard over time. For ages, I saw online connections as kind of a novelty. Like, sure, you play with people, you have a laugh, but then you log off and that's that. It's basically just fun. It's not real. But over the last few years, I've learnt that I was completely wrong about this. Because in World of Warcraft, those connections can become genuinely deep and genuinely meaningful in a way that I never expected from a video game. This is where I'm going to get a little bit more personal. I'm autistic, and in real life, I'm generally really well liked. I can fit in, I can be friendly, but I've always struggled with building relationships that go beyond that surface level. Deeper connections feel kind of uncomfortable and they're a bit confusing and honestly really, really tiring for me. Socializing takes a lot out of me. But in WoW, it's different. And I think it's because in WoW, the connection with others has more structure. It's low pressure, the rules are clearer. You're not just standing around trying to figure out what to say. You're all there for a reason. Everyone has a shared goal, a shared passion, and your communication with other people has a purpose. Somehow that makes it easier to relax and way easier to just be yourself. For me, that's looked like a few different things. My guild, the Woolly Mammoth, massive shout out, is this massive multi-raid team active community where I can log in and it always feels like there's people around. There's always dungeons going. There are raid groups going basically every night. Someone talking in the Discord. To begin with, that was overwhelming to me, but over time that turned into real familiarity. And then comfort. And then actual friendships. Like, I started to recognize names and voices and personalities, and suddenly it wasn't just a game. I was part of a group. I was part of a friendship circle. And what blossoms out of that is something weirdly beautiful and very unexpected to me. These supportive little networks where people are actually showing up for one another. Another one for me, the end of a Mythic Plus season, which if you don't play WoW or Mythic Plus is basically like the end part of a sporting season. Everyone pushing towards their goals before the final cutoff time. And in the region that I play, the Oceanic region, what I've seen season after season is players banding together to help each other get over the line. Not for clout, not for reward, just because they know what the accomplishment means to everyone else in that circle. And it's not just these big communities either, it's these micro communities that form, small friendships, people that you run one dungeon with, and then another dungeon, and suddenly you're running with them all the time. And I know how nerdy that sounds, but it is actually incredible. Because for me, WoW has become one of the places where friendships don't just form, they last and persist in a really meaningful way for years at a time. And once you've experienced that, once you've found a place where you feel understood, where you feel useful, where you feel like you actually belong, World of Warcraft stops being just a game. And when you put those three reasons together, the mastery, the world, the communities, you get the last reason: escape. I know on the surface this can sound a little bit unhealthy, like I'm hiding from my life or avoiding problems, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is restoration. Because life is tough. We all have our battles, we all carry stuff, and for me, a big part of that is juggling a very socially demanding job with an autistic brain that can really struggle to keep up with social and organizational load. So when I get home from a long day, mentally drained, emotionally cooked, I need an outlet. I need somewhere where my brain can just breathe for a bit. And what do I have as one of my main outlets? A space where I can methodically refine my skills until I hit a tangible goal. A space dripping with some of the coolest, most immersive fantasy lore I've ever found. A space where I'm part of a community, where I feel connected to other people and not just around other people. A living, breathing world that I can step into and be a part of. Pretty cool, yeah? Now, obviously, this shouldn't be the only outlet. I've got my wife, who I adore. I've got 2 dogs, a loving family. I've got a few other hobbies outside of WoW. I actually touch grass occasionally. I'm not pretending that World of Warcraft should replace real life, but as a place to decompress or a place to reset, WoW is unmatched because it rewards persistence and knowledge. It rewards consistency. It rewards effort. And it gives you a ridiculously deep sandbox where you can chase mastery, explore a world that feels alive, and build real friendships along the way. All inside a fantasy universe that is, quite frankly, cool as fuck. And I think that's why World of Warcraft has lasted. That's why it still pulls people in after 2 decades. Because for a lot of us, it isn't just a game. We'll be back to our regular competitive Mythic Plus content in the coming days. But as I've said in the past, a big part of the reason why I started this channel wasn't just to talk about keys and competitive gameplay. It was to genuinely share my love for this game. I'd love to hear how WoW has impacted you. Drop a comment down below with what you love most about the game or your most memorable moment. I read as many comments as I can, and I really would love to hear everyone's stories. Before I go, a big thank you to my YouTube and Buy Me a Coffee supporters, Ghost Splinter and the Joy of Checks for joining at the Keystone Legend tier, and to KSL and all my other supporters. It genuinely means the world to me. Thank you for tuning in, gamers. Until next time, take care.